Hey guys, so welcome to this new video, and in this video we are going to talk about Plato. Uh, this is actually a follow-up from the previous video on Socrates, the link for which is given in the description below. So this is about me. You can just pause the video here and read more about me if you want to, but I'll not waste time here. Moving on. Now this is where we start. So as you can see, there was a lot of overlap between Plato Socrates, as you can see from the timeline, right? So Plato was actually a disciple of Socrates, and he was very much influenced by Socrates, as I've already talked about in the previous video, right? So what Plato did was actually take the ideas of Socrates forward and make them, applicable to the political sphere. While Socrates mainly uh, dealt with philosophy, I would say. That's why Socrates was known as the father of philosophy. But Plato came to be known as the father of political philosophy. The reason is that Plato applied the Socratic ideas of philosophy in the political sphere. He made specific application of Socratic philosophy in political sphere. There are various spheres of activity in our society, and political sphere is one among them. You also have the economic sphere, you also have the social sphere, you can have many spheres. Okay, Plato applied those principles to the political sphere, as a result of which he came to be known as the father of political philosophy, right? So what you need to understand, the one guiding principle while reading about Plato is that the main target of Plato, both Plato and Socrates actually, uh, they wanted to establish the ideal state. Okay, they wanted to establish the ideal state in Athens. Now, Athens, during the period of Plato was actually a very divided kind of society. It was not prospering, it was not flourishing as it should have, right? It was ruled by Democrats, but as I've already, I think I've pointed out that the Democrats sentenced Socrates to death by drinking poison. Okay, so it was not really the kind of situation that Plato wanted. So to improve the situation, he came up with this theory. He came up with not just one theory, many theories, and the main objective was to build the ideal state, right? So state is the major thing here. State. He wanted to, create his entire philosophy around the concept of state, the ideal state. Now he sought to do this, by these two methods. One was he wanted to establish the ethics of the ruling class, and he wanted to establish the philosophy of administration. So he felt, according to Plato, he felt that the ruling class, the class that has all the power in society, okay, we can roughly equate that with the political class or the bureaucratic class. So that class of people was actually not aware of the ethics of ruling and administration. Why administration is important, or what are the ethics of administration. So the stress is on the word ethics. So Plato wanted to establish the ethics of administration and ruling. Now that was his method of, you know creating an ideal state. So because of his emphasis on ethics, and especially the ethics of ruling and administration, Plato is actually the precursor of good governance that we study in depth in recent times. So Plato is considered to be one of the forerunners of the concept of good governance. Okay, so we are not going to deal with Plato in too much depth. We are just going to study exactly the concepts and the ideas which are necessary from the perspective of UPSC. If you go through the last 30 years question papers for PSI or optional, you will find that questions on Western political thought, they are more or less on expected lines. There is no wide variance from year to year. Okay, so we'll study the concepts, we'll study the theories which are important from the perspective of the exam. Okay, we'll not, as I have already told you, we are not going to get a PhD in Western political thought. So theory of idea, right? So this was the first major component of the uh, the whole gamut of theories advocated by Plato. So according to Plato, idea is supreme, right? As I think we have already talked about this. Now there were, two major schools of thought uh, which were there to interpret the idea of reality. Now what is reality? Okay, there has been a lot of debate on what reality actually is. Somebody would say, reality is just what you can feel, what you can touch. Some would say reality is the universal spirit. There are various concepts of reality. Even in our Indian scriptures we have various schools of philosophy just based on the the interpretation of reality. I think if you read art and culture, you can read about more about these schools of philosophy, the six schools of philosophy. Okay, so they also interpret philosophy in certain ways, right? Now in Western political thought, the interpretation of reality, okay, we have two major schools of thought. Number one, the materialist school of thought. Okay, okay, and number two, we have the idealist school of thought. So the materialist school, they believe that matter is supreme. Okay, matter is supreme, which means that what you can touch, what you can feel, what you can experience directly, that is reality, right? So if I'm holding this pen in my hand, this is reality. Okay, I don't need to think about some supernatural power behind this pen. Okay, I can see this pen, I can feel this pen, so this is real. Now whatever I can see, feel, touch, eat, drink, smell, hear, so that is reality. Okay, so they gave supremacy to matter. Now what happened because of this kind of thinking was, there came to be this class of teachers. I think I have mentioned this in Socrates video as well. The sophist teachers. Okay, sophists were actually the teachers, who advocated this materialist philosophy. Now because of this, what happened was, there was craze for this whole materialism. Okay, so this led to excess materialism and struggle for power. Okay, so the struggle for power, what happened was, man, the concept of interest, man gave primacy to self-interest, and as a result of this primacy to self-interest, what happened was, society started getting divided. And this was exactly the situation that Plato found Athens to be in. So his diagnosis was that, this materialist school of thought is the real problem. Okay, so this whole line of thinking is wrong. This is what he said, right? So what he advocated was the idealist school of thought. So Socrates was the forerunner. Okay, he was the precursor of the idealist school of thought, which held that, you know matter, there is something beyond matter. Okay, something beyond the things that we can feel and touch and observe. Okay, so if I can touch this pen, I can see what is in front of me, I can see this camera, I can see my laptop, so I can see these things, observe these things. But there is a certain idea, there is a certain idea that is beyond all these things, beyond all these things that we can observe and we can feel, we can sense. Okay, so this idea, this something, so this is supreme. So this school held that idea, you need to find out the eternal idea behind the material existence. So if I am a human, why do I exist, right? Why am I here? Okay, why is this pen here? And it could have been, let's say 10,000 miles away. Why is it here right now? So these are the kind of questions that idealist school of thought wanted to come up with suitable answers. Now, actually it was in this context, that Plato made this statement. Okay, reality is the shadow of ideas, which means the reality that we see, the material reality that we have in front of us, that is actually the shadow of the perfect idea. Idea is the overarching reality. Okay, so if you have this, if this is idea, and let's say this is a screen. Okay, so what we have here, this is the material manifestation, right? So this is matter and this is idea. Okay, and this is basically a screen. So when you project idea onto the screen, what you get is matter. So matter is basically derived, it's derived from idea. It has no independent existence of its own, right? So idea is the perfect manifestation. Okay, idea is the perfect manifestation and the essence. Okay, the essence behind matter. That's that in few words, that is the summary of what Plato intends to Plato means by idea. Okay, we'll talk more about idea in the subsequent thinkers as well. Now the main thing, why Plato wanted to establish the supremacy of idea over matter. Now this is where the real trick is. See, the concepts given by a particular thinker, they are all oriented towards proving a particular thing. Okay, they are all oriented towards proving his particular line of thought, that if you follow this line of thought, you are going to achieve the objectives that have been outlined, right? So Plato wanted to achieve the ideal state. That was his objective, right? So all his theories, all his ideas, they were oriented towards achieving the ideal state. Now, why idea? Because as we have already mentioned, and we'll talk about it in details later in this video, Plato wanted to establish the supremacy of the idea of honesty. I've already spoken about ethics of the ruling class, right? Ethics and good governance. Okay, so to establish ethics of the ruling class, ethics of administration, ethics of governance, what Plato needed was, he needed a theoretical framework to prove that the idea of honesty has absolute supremacy. Okay, so if you have a theoretical framework which can prove that honesty is the supreme virtue, and everything else, whatever you find in administration is actually derived from that idea of honesty, then definitely you can, as a as a subsequent step, you can always say that being honest is the highest virtue for a for a ruler, right? So that was basically the whole purpose of Plato in advocating this theory of idea. Now we'll talk more about it later on. Now moving on. Okay, so this was as I've said, the basic funda of Plato. Okay, so what was the theory of state, right? So this state thing, the state concept, you should spend as much time as you can on the concept of state if you want to score very good marks in PSI or optional, because this concept, it simplifies everything else that is there in this optional. Okay, it simplifies Western political thought, it simplifies Indian political thought, it simplifies political theory, it simplifies international relations, it simplifies everything. So if you can internalize the concept of state from various perspectives, I think you'll be a very good you'll have a fantastic experience with this optional. Now this state, the concept of state, it is it has been evolving. Okay, it started with Socrates, and as you will find out, we'll keep moving, and we'll end with Hannah Arendt. Okay, and we'll also talk about the concept of state that was given by Indian political thinkers. Okay, so we'll start with Manu Smriti, and then we'll finally end with Ambedkar. Okay, so they have all talked about state at with various kinds of perspectives, and we'll talk about them in the subsequent videos. But in this video we are going to talk about the concept of state that was given by Plato, right? So first is the origin of state, how state originated. Then he gave the structure of state, and then he gave the functions of state. Okay, so state, many thinkers have many kind of perspectives on state. So if we are talking about thinkers like, say, Marx or Gandhi, they were against the concept of state. They were, according to them, state leads to the existence of state can perpetrate exploitation. So Marx held that state is the instrument of exploitation. Gandhi, again, he was against this idea of centralized state, so he wanted a system of village republics. uh, but there are other thinkers like Plato, Socrates, and we'll talk about other thinkers as well. They held that state is natural. Okay, state is natural, it's something that is needed. Okay, these are the two words. Now, number one is natural, and number two is state is needed. Now, why is it needed? According to Plato, nature, or nature has not made anyone self-sufficient. Okay, so man is not self-sufficient by himself. Okay, so if I am a teacher, right, I cannot be growing crops at the same time, right? So that was roughly the idea that Plato had. So if I'm not self-sufficient, then I need the help of others in the society. And if I need the help of others in the society, then state, this whole existence of a state is needed to govern social life. Okay, so to govern social life. Now, this is the main utility of state. Okay, why it should govern social life? The reason is, no one is self-sufficient. That is the main reason, right? Okay, now if we are to talk about the structure of the state, now Plato divided society into three sections. One was ruling class. Now this was his main focus, actually, ruling class, how to establish the ethics of the ruling class. The other was the soldier class. Okay, and the third was the producer class. Okay, so roughly, if you if you equate these classes with the contemporary specializations that we have, ruling class would be the the political class, bureaucratic class. Soldier class would be the defense forces. Producer class would be the agriculturists. Okay, so these were the three sections of society that Plato gave, right? And he believed that all these three classes, the ruling class, the soldier class, and the producer class, they depended on each other for survival. Okay, so it was a system of interdependence. So society was a system of interdependence, right? They were connected to each other. They were not self-sufficient. So each class had its own functions. So the ruling class performed its own functions, the producer class had its own functions, and the soldier class had its own functions. And when they performed each of their functions well enough, you had the society was run on expected lines, and the presence of state, it ensured that the social life was well governed. This was, Plato's road to establishing the ideal state. So this theory of state, after the theory of state, so now we come to the theory of justice. Now here again, theory of justice is one of the theories to establish the ideal state. As I've told you, everything converges on the ideal state. For Plato, ideal state is at the center, and everything else that he talks about, justice, we'll talk about other things as well. Okay, justice, we'll talk about communism. Okay, we'll talk about education. Okay, so he gave these theories to establish his vision of ideal state, right? So justice was one of the components, and his concept of justice, he actually tried to counter the prevailing ideas about justice at that point of time. There was this traditional view of justice, and there was this sophist view of justice. According to the sophist view, justice is the interest of the stronger. Okay, so the sophists, as I've already told you, they were a power hungry class of people. Okay, so justice is the interest of the stronger, and this meant, that roughly this meant that might is right, right? So it's like, a very simplified version of justice. Plato countered this and said that, might is right is, it may be applicable to the animal world, but it's not relevant for the human notion of justice. So justice cannot just be the interest of the stronger. Now the traditional view was that, that justice is about paying one's dues. Okay, doing one's duty and paying one's dues. Doing one's duty and paying one's dues. Okay, so you do your duty, you pay your dues. If you have taken loan from the bank, you pay it back. And if your boss wants you to do something, if your organization wants you to do something, you just do it. That's enough. You are a just man. Okay, so that was the concept of justice in traditional times, before Plato was there. Plato said that, how can it be justice, if you borrow a weapon from someone. Okay, you borrow a weapon from someone, and that person, he turns mad. So if you are to fulfill your dues, you have to give him back your weapon, right? Because you have borrowed it. But will it be really just? Like, it's like, you you import certain defense equipment from Russia, and say Russia, Russia is captured. Let's hypothetically, Russia is captured by, Al Qaeda. Would it be right for you to, just pay them back whatever you have imported? Will it be right? It's not. I mean, it sounds ludicrous, right? So that was what Plato pointed out, that it cannot be that simplistic. Okay, so in Plato's view, uh, justice justice was something more than the concepts that were already there. So Plato's concept of justice, I'll just erase this whole thing here. Yeah, so now, Plato's theory, if we talk about Plato's theory, uh, what he intended to do with his theory of justice. Now his theory of justice, there are certain components, I would say, components of Plato's theory. Okay, duty plus right conduct. Okay, this is fine, this is the basic. Okay, then we have not simplistic as equivalent to power. Okay, It's not just about might is right. It's not the animal world that we are talking about here. Okay. And apart from that, it should benefit everyone. Okay. Benefit all. Now this was the thing. Okay. If it benefits only a certain section of the society, then it's not justice. Now, from these concepts, he gave this statement to establish what he actually meant by justice. Okay, this was his, I would say, central statement for his theory of justice. What it said was, state is the individual writ large. So if you have the, a second, yeah, so if you have the individual here, then state is just a bigger reflection of the individual. Okay, this is the individual, and state is composed of many such individuals on a larger scale. So this is what he meant by a state is the individual writ large. So why that is so? The reason is, justice according to Plato is necessary to establish harmony and excellence. These are the two keywords which you must use in any answer dealing with Plato's theory of justice: harmony and excellence. Okay, harmony and excellence. This is why justice is necessary. You have to, secure harmony in society, and you have to make sure that there is excellence. People try to achieve their best. Now, why this is so? Or I would say how this is so. Plato's diagnosis was, you need functional specialization. As I have already told you, functional specialization, it means that, dividing society into three classes, just like you divide society into, producer class, soldier class, and the ruling class. You can also divide an individual, the constitution of an individual. This is the individual and this is the society. Okay, so this society has these three classes. Individual is also constituted by three main qualities, which are reason, courage, and appetite. Okay, so these are the three major reasons. So I'll just erase all these things. A fresh slide. Okay, so reason, courage, and appetite. So these were the three qualities of an individual. Now, these are actually equated with the the divisions of the society. So if you are the ruling class, reason is your dominant quality. Okay, if you are the soldier class, then courage is your dominant quality. You have all these three qualities. An individual has all these three qualities within himself, but depending on which quality is the dominant one, he will be part of either of these three classes. So if appetite is dominant, he will be part of the producer class. If courage is his dominant quality, he'll be part of the soldier class. If reason is his dominant quality, he'll be part of the ruling class. Now, if this is the order in which the state is arranged, so if ruling class is at the top, followed by the soldier class, followed by the producer class, if this is the hierarchy of the state, then you have harmony and you have excellence. Similarly, if you have within an individual, if reason is the dominant quality, followed by courage, followed by appetite, if this is the hierarchy of qualities within an individual, then that too is the ingredient for harmony. So if this order is followed, this leads to justice. So justice at the level of the state can be secured if you have the hierarchy like this, and this is only possible if you have the hierarchy of qualities within an individual on roughly similar lines. Okay, so reason, so these are the keywords: reason, courage, appetite, and correspondingly you have the ruling class, the soldier class, and the producer class. Okay, so this hierarchy, if it is maintained, it's a recipe for justice, and it will lead to the ideal state. But this theory was actually criticized by Aristotle. Aristotle again was strongly influenced by Plato, but nevertheless he challenged certain ideas of Plato, and this was one amongst them. According to Aristotle, it was not correct to consider a particular person to be, it's not right to consider him as part of a producer class throughout his life. Okay, so let's say I'm a farmer at the age of 30. Okay, age 30 I'm a farmer. It's not necessary that at the age of 50 I will wish to remain a farmer. I might try and become something else. I might try and become, an MP or an MLA, right? So that was the kind of thinking that Aristotle had, that it's not correct. Okay, and besides, according to Aristotle, he also wanted representation from various classes when it came to political participation, right? So the ruling class, it cannot just be the class of people with reason as the dominant quality. This is a very simplistic interpretation according to Aristotle. So ruling class, you should have representation from the other classes also in this class. So this is what Aristotle held, and this was basically his criticism of Plato. Okay, so next, this theory of soul. This is actually the smaller component. Soul, it's just the part of God in humans. It's connected to his idea of reality, and it's basically the unchangeable component in human being. Unchangeable component. So it has three elements. I've already told you what are the three elements: reason, courage, and appetite. Okay, so these are the three elements of human soul, and whichever is dominant, according to that, the person will be part of either of the three classes. Now, okay, so apart from the theory of justice and the theory of reality that we have already studied, the other two important theories of Plato are theory of education and the theory of communism. Now, both the theory of education and communism both were to be used together. Okay, these were supposed to be the two essential ingredients of public policy to establish the ideal state. How? Now, education was supposed to be the primary means. Okay, and if education, if there were certain I would say loopholes in the system of education, then this theory of communism was supposed to take care of that. So education aimed at creating the ideal citizens. So first, as he had already said, that the state comes from the individual. Okay, so the state comes from the individual. So if you inculcate the correct qualities in the individual, then the state reflects the same. Just as in the concept of justice, here too is the same thing. So if you want the ideal state, you need to have the ideal citizens first. And what is the way to establish the ideal citizen? That is education. This is the most powerful tool to establish the correct kind of citizens who will constitute the ideal state. Now, he gave his theory of education, and that was actually influenced by the education system that was existing in Sparta. Okay, Spartan education system was very impressive according to Plato, and his theory was actually, it had many elements from the Spartan theory. Now, what Plato suggested was, uh, that the system of education would have certain filtration mechanisms to find out the ideal qualities. Okay, so the education system should be designed in such a way that it can find out which citizen is meant for what kind of job. Okay, so if a citizen is meant to become the producer, okay, if he's meant to be part of the producer class, then he should not get into the soldier class. Okay, that's common sense. The education system should be such that it creates the correct classification among the citizens. Okay, so if I'm someone who is you know who has appetite has his dominant quality, okay, so then I should be part of the producer class. If I have reason as my dominant quality, then I should be part of the ruling class. And the education system should be such that it identifies the quality which is dominating inside the individual. So that was the basic purpose of education according to Plato. He gave two stages of education. I'll just erase this whole thing. Okay, so he gave first came basic education. This was this was supposed to be till age of 20. Now in this basic education, very much like the kind of education system that we have right now, you would be taught gymnastics. Okay, you would be taught music and a whole lot of moral stories, right? When this person reaches the age of 18, he is still in the stage of basic education. 18 to 20 would be a stage of compulsory military education. Okay, so military education is to be compulsory between the ages of 18 to 20. Now the second stage will be, okay, so this was the first stage, okay, basic education. Second stage will be 20 to 35 years. Now this will be the stage of higher education. Higher education, so you'll be taught geometry, mathematics, all these subjects. Okay, like till the age of 20 we had basic education. Till the age of 35 we'll have higher education. Now there will be a filtration process at the age of 30. The ones who do not show any kind of aptitude for philosophy, or the process of dialectics, if you are not interested in dialectics, these people who are not interested in these two things, who do not have aptitude for them, they will join the soldier class. Okay, the others who are not filtered out, they will go on to join the ruling class. Okay, so this was Plato's concept to kind of develop successive stages of filtering. Okay, so these are like filters. Okay, so basic education is one filter, higher education is the other filter, so dialectics is the last filter. So these are the filters by which, if you put a particular citizen, if you put a particular individual through all these layers, and if he comes out successfully at the end successfully through all the layers, then he can be part of the ruling class. The ones who are filtered out are accordingly going to be in the producer class or the soldier class, right? So that was the whole theory. Now we come to the theory of communism. Now let's say education. Now if education manages to, if the whole system is absolutely perfect, so you will have exactly the right kind of persons in the right places. Okay, so the entire hierarchy will be absolutely picture perfect. So you have the producer class, the soldier class, and the ruling class. Okay, so this will be the hierarchy. But let's say there are certain loopholes in education. So if the system of education is not perfect, then there has to be some kind of secondary mechanism to make sure that the ideal state is not compromised. Now the theory of communism, okay, the theory of communism is just that kind of a secondary mechanism. So in the theory of communism, he gave two kinds of communism to ensure this. One was communism of family, and the other was communism of property. Now, communism is something that we tend to associate with Marx and socialism, okay? But the idea of communism, Marx, what he did was he turned communism into an ideology, okay? But the concept of communism, which means that, common ownership, okay? Communism, that is what it means, okay? So this whole idea of communism, this is a very old idea, okay? This is as an ideology developed much later, but the idea of communism is very old, and Plato was the one of the earliest thinkers to use it. So he suggested communism of family and communism of property. Why? Communism of family, to solve the problem of nepotism, okay? So to solve the problem of nepotism in public life, what he suggested was that there would be no individual marriages. Okay, so it would be all state-sponsored marriages. There would be no private marriages or private children. Why? Because having your own family, your own private family, that creates the incentive for nepotism. So you will feel like you should get a job for your child, and that might distort the principles of public life. So even if reason is your dominant quality, and this has already been established by the education process. So by education process, it has been established that you have reason as the dominant quality. That's fine. Okay, so you are part of the ruling class. But even as part of the ruling class, if you have your own family, then it might give rise to this nepotism. So if you have communism of family, okay, so the state will decide who should procreate with whom. Okay, so the idea was to let the ablest of Greek citizens, okay, procreate amongst each other. Okay, so if, like, the idea was to let the highest achievers procreate among themselves, that would give rise to the ablest of Greek citizens. This was his whole idea. He wanted to create a class of citizens that would be the best. Okay, so that in trying to do that, he suggested this whole idea. Now, apart from this communism of family, he also suggested the communism of property. This is the kind of communism that we are more in tune with, which we have the idea of. So communism of property, this meant that there will be no private property. Okay, no private property. Because why? Because Plato believed that private property, it is the source of corruption. So to root out corruption, if you want to end corruption, just do away with private property. So that was his diagnosis. Now Aristotle was one of his greatest followers, right? But Aristotle strongly criticized Plato's theory of communism, and he held that this is the remedy is worse than the disease. Okay, so it's like if you have an infection in your arm, you're chopping off your entire arm. So that's what Aristotle thought. So both property and family, they are very age old institutions, and they are sources of motivation. Okay, so you cannot just do away with them just for the sake of getting rid of corruption and nepotism. You have to have other mechanisms, other institutional mechanisms, which can check corruption, which can check nepotism. So for example, today we have CAG, the audit. Okay, so audit is there, so that we have audit, we have vigilance, so that the public servants or the politicians, they do not amass too much property, illegal property. So that is an institutional check. So this is similar to what Aristotle actually believed in, that we should have other institutional checks and balances in the whole system, instead of simply banning private property and banning family. That is an extreme solution. So Aristotle vehemently criticized this idea of Plato. And of course, the other question that we might expect from this section is the difference between the kind of communism that was visualized by Plato and the one visualized by Marx. So this answer will become clearer when we reach the video on Marx. But for now, you can just mention that for Plato, communism was used as a means to establish the ideal state. Okay, now communism was like the tool to achieve this. Marx, he never wanted the ideal state, he never wanted state. Okay, Marx was against state, he wanted a stateless society. So his idea of communism was completely against state. Also, the biggest difference between Plato and Marx is in the concept of reality. Again, well, we are back to that matter versus idea debate. So when we read about Marx, we'll see that Marx gave supremacy to matter. Okay, and Plato gave supremacy to idea. So moving on now, this is the last section of Plato, and this was his ultimate remedy to establish the ideal state. So if we move chronologically from justice to soul, okay, to we can move to the concept of state, and then we can move to the concept of education, and then we can move to the concept of communism. So these are all chronologically, we are just moving towards the ideal state. Okay, and next comes the philosopher king concept. Okay, so this philosopher king concept comes after all these steps. Okay, justice, soul. So Plato explains all these concepts. Okay, and then he comes up with this solution. It's like everything combined in one, everything is combined into one concept. Okay, so what is a philosopher king? Philosopher king is the ideal king. Okay, so he will be the most knowledgeable. Okay, and knowledge, he will be the epitome of knowledge and virtue. He will be the perfect ruler. That was what Plato visualized. So if if his in his soul he has reason, and if he has undergone the right process of education, and if he is filtered through the theory of communism, okay, then you create the philosopher king. So if you follow this whole recipe, you get the philosopher king, and the philosopher king is supposed to be perfect. So with a perfect philosopher king, you have the ideal state. So this was the ideal remedy. Now according to Plato, this philosopher king, he was above everything. Okay, he was above all laws, because he's supposed to know everything, and he was supposed to be supremely virtuous. So in short, he was like a superman. Okay, in short, he will be the supermanesque king that an ideal state should aspire to have. But this concept was criticized by Aristotle, who was his greatest follower, as I've already told. What Aristotle held was that this philosopher king, this is just an utopia. Okay, utopia means something that is imaginary, a concept that is not there in reality. So this is the ideal form. Okay, so according to Aristotle, this philosopher king was the ideal form. But when you put it into practice, what comes out is tyranny. Okay, so the philosopher king is supposed to be a superman, but in real life, when you put this whole concept into practice, he'll turn out to be a tyrant. Okay, he'll be all powerful and he can misuse his position. So it's not possible to find such a person. So according to Aristotle, it's not possible. This concept is theoretically fine, but practically you cannot find a person like this. It's simply not possible. Okay, now these are two aspects of Plato from where questions have been asked. One is Plato's how Plato was a precursor for fascism, and how Plato was a precursor for feminism. So for fascism, you can mention the rule of philosopher king. Okay, because he justified the Superman kind of image of a ruler. This was misused by the Nazis, okay, later on in Germany. So this can be one point. Apart from that, fascists also believe in the idea of racial superiority. Okay, so this is equated with Plato's division of society. Okay, he divided the society into three classes, and he believed that it was very natural. Okay, so this is also somehow equated with the fascist concept of racial superiority. Apart from that, Plato establishes complete control of state. Okay, so complete control of state over citizens. This was also what fascists used to justify their tyranny, right? That the state is it's absolutely supreme. The citizens have nothing against the state, right? But then again, for these kind of questions where there is a question mark, whether Plato was a fascist or what he exactly was, there are always two sides, as I've already told you. So there are differences as well. Okay, Plato, unlike the fascists, okay, his ideal state was not to justify, not to justify tyranny. Okay, his ideal state was meant to improve the conditions of life. Okay, the conditions, Athens at that point of time was really in a bad shape, and Plato wanted to improve that situation, and that's why he came up with this concept. So it was completely different from why the ideology of fascism came up. It was mainly as a technique to monopolize power. Okay, so that was the major difference. Plato, the major other major difference was in the concept of private property. Okay, so while Plato suggested the communism of private property, he was against the whole idea of private property. Fascists were never against private property. In fact, they were sometimes fascism is also referred to as the mutant variety of capitalism. Okay, so fascism is often referred to as the mutant variety of capitalism. Okay, but Plato, he was against private property, so that was another major difference. So I think this is all that we can talk about in Plato. This feminist concept we'll talk about in the when we come to the video on feminism in the ideology section of political theory. Okay, so this will just reserve for later. But apart from that, just form a chronology of the concepts that Plato has given in order to achieve the ideal state. So I'll just do a quick recap of everything. So Plato he wanted to improve situation in Athens. So to improve the situation, he wanted to establish the ethics of administration. To establish the ethics of administration, he wanted to establish the supremacy of idea of honesty. Okay, so to do that, what he did was he came up with the theory of justice, and he came up with the theory of soul with its three qualities. Okay, from this he derived the concept of state and how state is interlinked. State is a system of interlinkages. Okay, and then he kind of polishes on this concept using education and communism. Then finally he reaches his final concept of philosopher king. Okay, so this was what Plato stood for. At least this is what we need to know from the perspective of UPSC. And all the questions that have been there in the previous years, you can answer it just based on these few concepts and facts. That's it. It's enough. Do not need to read too many books. It's unnecessary. And the other thing that you need to keep in mind is the criticism part. So you'll find that Aristotle has criticized Plato in multiple cases. Okay, so when we go through Aristotle, we'll deal with these criticisms in greater depth. But for now, I think this is enough. And in the next video, we'll look at Aristotle. We'll come up with Aristotle in the next video. And please subscribe to the channel. And you can read more about me in my Quora profile, the link for which is given in the description below. And thank you till then.